The sun dipped low over the sprawling countryside, its golden rays dancing over the fields of wheat that stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The farm had seen better days. Fences sagged, the barn wore a coat of peeling paint, and the house stood tired and worn. Still, it held a certain charm, a testament to its long history and the love that had nurtured its soil for generations. Emma Clark stood at the edge of her fields, her hands rough from work, but her spirit unyielding. The farm was her legacy, handed down through 3 generations. Her father, now gone, had poured every ounce of his energy into the land, teaching Emma that it was not just soil but a lifeline, a home, and a treasure. But times had changed, and with it came challenges that threatened to uproot her family's history. The debt had piled high, and Emma, despite her relentless efforts, couldn't seem to find a way out. Banks had sent letters, offers to buy the farm had come and gone, but Emma wasn't ready to sell. She wasn't ready to let go of her father's dream. Meanwhile, in a bustling city hundreds of miles away, Victor Steele sat in the plush corner office of Steele Enterprises, staring out at the skyline. A millionaire many times over, Victor had everything anyone could desire: money, influence, and power. Yet, a peculiar restlessness gnawed at him. His life, filled with meetings and transactions, felt hollow. The thrill of conquering the business world had dulled, leaving him yearning for something he couldn't quite name. Victor's latest endeavor was an ambitious one, acquiring fertile farmland across the country to expand his agricultural investments. His advisors had mentioned a particular property, a struggling family farm in the heartland, ripe for acquisition. It wasn't the first of its kind, but there was something about the farm's history, detailed in the reports, that intrigued him. Deciding to inspect the property himself, Victor made an unusual decision. Rather than arriving as the powerful businessman he was, he chose to go undercover. He reasoned that seeing the land and its owner up close without the influence of his wealth would provide a clearer picture of the investment's potential. Dressed in faded jeans and a second-hand flannel shirt, Victor traded his luxury car for an old pickup truck and made his way to the Clark farm. When he arrived, he was struck by the sight before him. The farm, though in disrepair, exuded an undeniable warmth. The fields swayed gently in the breeze, and the house, while weathered, seemed to stand with quiet dignity. Emma was tending to a broken fence when Victor approached. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight, and though her face bore the strain of hard work, her eyes held a fierce determination. She turned to him with a wary look. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice guarded. Victor hesitated for a moment. "Name's Vic," he said, deciding to use a shortened version of his name. "Heard you might need some help around here. I'm good with my hands and looking for work." Emma studied him, her instincts sharp. Something about this stranger seemed off. His hands were too smooth for someone claiming to be a farmhand. But she was desperate for help, and a part of her hoped he was genuine. "Fine," she said, crossing her arms. "But I can't pay much." Victor nodded. "Fair enough. I'm not here for the money." Over the next few days, Victor immersed himself in the farm's daily operations. The work was grueling, and he struggled to keep up. Emma, despite her initial doubts, found herself appreciating his efforts. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, and though he often stumbled, he always got back up. As the days turned into weeks, Victor began to see the farm through Emma's eyes. It wasn't just a piece of land to her. It was a living, breathing entity that held memories, dreams, and sacrifices. He saw the way she tended to the crops with care, the way she spoke of her father with reverence, and the quiet strength that kept her going despite the odds. Victor's initial plan to buy the farm at a bargain price began to feel wrong. Emma's resilience and passion stirred something within him, something he hadn't felt in years. He started to question his motives and the life he had built around wealth and acquisitions. One evening, as the two sat on the porch after a long day, Emma opened up about her struggles. "Sometimes, I wonder if I'm holding on too tight," she admitted, her voice tinged with sadness. "But this farm is all I have left of my family. Selling it feels like giving up on them." Victor listened, guilt tightening his chest. He wanted to tell her the truth, but fear held him back. He didn't want to shatter the fragile trust they had built. Unbeknownst to Victor, Emma had started to suspect there was more to him than met the eye. She had caught glimpses of his watch, a luxury brand that seemed out of place on a farmhand, and his mannerisms often betrayed an upbringing far removed from the simplicity of rural life. As their bond deepened, both found themselves at a crossroads. Emma was torn between her loyalty to the farm and the reality of her financial situation, while Victor wrestled with his growing feelings for her and the weight of his deception. What neither of them knew was that their journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would challenge their beliefs, test their resolve, and redefine what truly mattered in life. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of freshly turned earth as Victor settled into his newfound rhythm on the farm. Every day brought new challenges, fixing equipment, mending fences, and helping Emma with the endless tasks that came with running the place. Though his muscles ached and his clothes grew more tattered with each passing week, Victor began to feel an unexpected satisfaction in his work. For the first time in years, his mind wasn't consumed by stock reports or business strategies. Instead, it was filled with the earthy scent of the fields and the simple joy of watching seeds sprout under the care of hard labor. Emma, too, was surprised by how much she had come to rely on him. Though she still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Vic than he let on, she found herself trusting him. He listened without judgment, offered help without hesitation, and seemed genuinely invested in the farm's survival. The days were less lonely with him around, and she caught herself smiling more often, even as the burden of debt loomed ever larger in the background. One evening, as the sky turned shades of lavender and gold, Victor found Emma leaning against the barn door, staring out at the fields. She seemed lost in thought, her face illuminated by the fading light. "Penny for your thoughts?" Victor asked, his voice soft. Emma glanced at him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Just wondering if it's all worth it. This farm, it's been in my family for 3 generations. My dad used to say the land has a soul, and I believed him. But now, sometimes I wonder if I'm just chasing ghosts." Victor stepped closer, leaning against the doorframe beside her. "You're not chasing ghosts," he said after a moment. "You're fighting for something that matters. That takes courage." Emma turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "Why are you really here, Vic? You could have gone anywhere, done anything. Why this?" Victor hesitated, the weight of his deception pressing heavily on his chest. He wanted to tell her the truth, to explain why he had come and how his intentions had changed. But the fear of losing her trust kept him silent. "I guess I needed a change," he said finally, avoiding her gaze. "Sometimes, life in the city feels empty." Emma nodded, accepting his answer for now. But her instincts told her there was more to the story. As the weeks passed, Victor found himself becoming more entangled in the life of the farm and in Emma's world. He learned the stories behind the old oak tree by the house, the recipes her grandmother had passed down, and the songs her father used to hum while working the fields. Each detail deepened his understanding of what the farm meant to her, and each moment spent with Emma left him more captivated by her resilience and kindness. But the clock was ticking. Victor knew his company was expecting a report, and the pressure to finalize the acquisition was mounting. His assistant, Clara, had called him multiple times, her voice laced with impatience. "You can't stay there forever, Victor. We need a decision." "I need more time," he had replied, his tone firm. But even as he said it, he knew he couldn't delay forever. The moment of truth was approaching, and he wasn't ready for it. One afternoon, as Victor and Emma worked side by side repairing a tractor, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. Emma straightened, her brow furrowing as a sharply dressed man stepped out, holding a briefcase. "Who's that?" Emma asked, wiping her hands on her jeans. Victor's stomach dropped. He recognized the man immediately, James Tully, one of Steel Enterprises' top lawyers. He had been sent to close the deal. Before Victor could respond, James approached them, a polished smile on his face. "Good afternoon," he said, glancing between them. "Miss Clark, I presume? My name is James Tully, and I represent a client who's very interested in purchasing your property." Emma's expression hardened. I've already told everyone. I'm not selling. James's smile didn't waver. I understand your reluctance, but my client is prepared to make a very generous offer. Enough to cover your debts and ensure a comfortable future. Victor felt the blood drain from his face as Emma turned to him, confusion and betrayal flickering in her eyes. You knew about this? She demanded. Victor started, but the words caught in his throat. Emma's gaze narrowed, and for the first time, Victor saw a flash of anger in her usually kind eyes. You lied to me, she said, her voice trembling. Emma, please let me explain, Victor said, stepping closer. It's not what it looks like. But Emma shook her head, taking a step back. I trusted you, she said, her voice breaking. And you were just waiting to take everything I have. Victor reached out, his heart pounding. It wasn't like that, he said desperately. At first, yes, but things changed. You changed me. Emma stared at him for a long moment before turning away, her shoulders slumping in defeat. I think you should go, she said quietly. Victor stood there, his heart shattering as he watched her walk away. The truth had come out, but it had cost him everything he hadn't realized he wanted until it was too late. Victor stood frozen, watching Emma disappear into the house. The echo of her words cut deeper than he'd imagined possible. For the first time in years, his wealth, influence, and power felt utterly useless. All he had left was the crushing weight of regret and the faint hope that he could somehow make things right. He didn't leave that day. Instead, he stayed in the small rented room above the local diner, wrestling with how to repair the damage he had caused. It wasn't about the farm anymore, it was about Emma. She had shown him what it meant to care about something deeply, to fight for it despite the odds. Victor realized he wanted to be part of her fight, not the reason she gave up. The next morning, he made his way back to the farm. He found Emma in the barn, her back turned to him as she mucked out the stalls. The air between them was heavy with tension, but Victor knew he couldn't leave without speaking his heart. Emma, he began softly, his voice unsteady. I know you don't want to hear from me, but please let me explain. She didn't turn around, but she paused her work. You've done enough explaining, Vic, or whatever your real name is. It's Victor, he admitted. Victor Steele. That made her turn, her eyes narrowing. Steele? As in Steele Enterprises? The company trying to buy my farm? Yes, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. But it's not what you think. When I came here, I thought I was just scouting another investment. I didn't know you, and I didn't understand what this place meant. But that changed. You changed me. Emma crossed her arms, her face a mixture of anger and hurt. And now what? You think you can just say sorry and I'll forgive you? No, Victor said earnestly. I don't expect that. I don't deserve it. But I want to help. Not as a businessman, but as someone who admires your strength and your love for this place. I don't want to take your farm, Emma. I want to save it. Emma's eyes softened slightly, but she remained guarded. Why should I believe you? Victor took a deep breath. Because I'm willing to prove it. I'll dissolve the offer from Steele Enterprises. The farm is off the table. And I'll use my resources to help you clear your debts. No strings attached. Emma's mouth opened slightly in surprise. Why would you do that? Because I see now that this farm is more than just land. It's your family, your memories, your legacy. And because his voice faltered, but he pushed on. Because I care about you, Emma. More than I ever thought possible. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the only sound the rustling of the wind outside. Emma searched his face, looking for any sign of deceit. All she saw was sincerity and a vulnerability that touched her deeply. I don't want your money, Victor, she said finally. If you're serious about helping, then help me the way you have been, by working alongside me. Victor's heart swelled with relief and gratitude. I'll do whatever it takes. And so, they began a new chapter together. True to his word, Victor called his company and instructed them to withdraw their interest in the farm. He poured his own money into repairing the property, not as a loan, but as a gift to help Emma rebuild. Together, they fixed the barn, restored the fences, and brought life back to the fields. As they worked side by side, their connection deepened. Victor learned the value of hard work, not for profit but for purpose. Emma, in turn, saw a different side of him, a man who was willing to set aside his wealth and privilege to fight for something real. Months passed, and the farm began to thrive again. Word spread in the community about Emma's perseverance and Victor's unexpected transformation. Neighbors pitched in to help, and soon the farm was more vibrant than it had been in years. One evening, as they stood together under the starlit sky, Victor took Emma's hands in his. "You taught me what it means to truly care about something," he said. "And to care about someone. I want to build a future here, with you." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of joy. "You've already done so much for me, Victor. But more than anything, you've shown me I'm not alone. And that's worth more than anything money could ever buy." Their lips met in a tender kiss, sealing the bond that had grown between them. Together, they had faced the storms of life and emerged stronger. The farm was no longer just a piece of land. It was a symbol of resilience, hope, and the love that had blossomed against all odds. And in that moment, under the vast expanse of stars, Victor and Emma knew they had found something far more valuable than riches. They had found each other.